Howdy folks. Had a few requests recently about the menu system, so I figured I'd do a quick walkthrough. First thing to note, in the latest version 1.15, I have added a template which you can just drop into a scene and that'll give you a basic menu. But here let's create one from scratch. So the first thing we're going to do is create some UI components. So we need a canvas, and then we're going to create a child of that canvas. Let's call it menu, and then we're going to add a menu. So there's two options. You've got your UI basic menu and your UI scrolling menu. We'll just stick with basic menu for now. We're going to create another empty child. I'm going to call that visible content. So this is where what you can see will be shown. So obviously menus are often hidden and revealed, and this visible content will be the game object that holds the content that gets activated and deactivated. We're also going to create another child called pointer, which we'll use to indicate the current menu position. Now you must have a pointer. Even if it's not visible, this is used by some of the internal scripts. So if you jump up to menu, we'll drag the visible component to the visible component field, we'll drag the pointer to the pointer field. Next thing we need to do is add some menu items. So let's create another empty child, and we'll call this menu item 1. And we're going to add a UI menu item component. You can either add a generic component, which has the basic kind of behaviors like loading and exiting, or you can add more specific components like character select, key config, input configuration, or volume. So we're just going to use the basic one. And I'll put in the title menu option 1. And we won't worry about the action for now. Let's do the same again for menu item 2. Now what the menu script does is it finds these menu items and then it renders each one using this menu item prefab. So the menu item prefab needs to be a game object that has a menu renderer or menu item renderer component. The easiest way to start here is to drop into prefabs. Let's just say menu item image. Actually, sorry, let's create one from scratch. So let's mock it up by creating an empty game object as a child of the visible content. Oops. So we're going to make this a prefab, but we need a menu item renderer on it. So there's a couple of options. There's one that draws an image, one that draws a text, one that draws text split into 2 columns, and one specifically for volume controls. So let's just go with simple text for now. We're going to add a text component to this. So let's make this a bit wider and maybe a little bit larger. And we'll center the text. Now it's important that in our prefab, if we have a look in the scene, that we get the bounding box correct, because this bounding box, specified by the width and height, will actually be used to separate the menu. So if we have a height of 200, the menu items will be 200 units apart. Let's actually cut this down so it only fits one line on it. Make it a bit wider. I'm going to drop that in as a prefab. We're Obviously we don't want that to be visible, but from there we should be able to get a basic menu going. Oops, except for I forgot to set the text component. We'll see we have two options and we can move up and down between them. If we give them some actions, so let's say load scene. Load scene. Now of course it's not going to work because I don't have test scene or test scene 1, but we should see the error message saying could not load the test scene. Could not load the test scene. If we wanted to add a pointer, let's just do that. Center it up. And then you'll see the pointer moves. Now, it's not in the right spot. That's why we have a offset here. For the sake of argument, let's move it across maybe a little bit more. Now let's add a submenu. So we'll just duplicate this, call it submenu, and we'll change the text. And we'll put menu item 1, submenu 1. The second item will be back. And we'll change this to show menu. So clicking this will show this menu. And here we'll say go to submenu, which will show menu, this menu. And the only thing different about a submenu and a main menu is that the submenu starts disabled. Oops, sorry, that's not true. The submenu visible content starts disabled. So now we have a menu we can drill into. Another thing we could do is add effects. So if we go to visible content, so let's add a FX fade. Then we're going to fade to white full alpha. Another FX fade. Fade to white with 0 alpha. Change them to linears. And then we go to the menu and we go show effects size 1, hide effects size 1. We just need to lock this inspector here. So the one that goes to full white will be the show effect. This one will be the hide effect. And I don't think we set a time there, did we? So let's say it takes a whole second to fade, which is probably not very accurate, but it will do. Oops. We need to set a fade target. Let's double check that's correct. There we go. Sorry about that. The UI fade script's a bit different to the fade script. Fade works on sprites and meshes, but it doesn't work on UI components. And this, if you don't specify any targets, it just finds everything underneath this game object that's fadeable, subclass of graphics. We should also do the same thing here. Fade to white. Fade to white at 0 alpha. Oops. And lock the inspector. Back to the menu. One for the show, one for the hide. Keep hitting save, such a habit. That's your basic menu system in place.